I am Hyuga Horiguchi of Wakayama University in Japan. Today, I'd like to talk about onboarding to open source projects with good first issues, a preliminary analysis. Open source software projects are built on contributions from the community, such as bug reports, bug fixes, and enhancements. Community developers are free to join and leave the development process. Therefore, the community is always looking for contributions from new developers to make the project sustainable. It is known that new developers face various barriers in joining the community, especially for inexperienced developers with OSS development. The impact of barriers is significant, and onboarding to the community itself may be difficult. One of the barriers for inexperienced developers is the barrier of issue selection. There are a large number of issues in a project. This is an example of issues from the Node.js project. Therefore, it takes a lot of time for inexperienced developers to select the issue they want to resolve and to determine whether the issue is resolvable. Some projects help inexperienced developers to onboard by labeling issues for developers who want to contribute to the project as good first issue. However, it has been pointed out that the task of labeling GFIs from a large number of issues can be a burden for project maintainers. The final goal of this research is to construct a machine learning model for recommending GFIs. This model contributes to the onboarding of inexperienced developers by reducing the burden of GFI labeling on maintenance, and helping inexperienced developers to find GFIs that are suitable for them. In this presentation, we report the current status of the GFI mechanism and the impact of GFI on the onboarding of inexperienced developers towards the final goal. To understand the current state of GFI mechanism and the impact of GFI on the onboarding of inexperienced developers, we address the following research questions. In our Q1, we analyze whether GFIs are suitable for inexperienced developers with OSS development. This analysis is done to see if GFIs are actually being resolved by inexperienced developers. In our Q2, we examine whether GFIs are easier to resolve than regular issues. This is done in order to clarify whether GFIs are easier to resolve than regular issues in the first place. In our Q3, we analyze the percentage of developers that have successfully used GFI for onboarding. This is done to determine whether the current GFI mechanism is useful for onboarding inexperienced developers. This section describes the dataset used for the analysis. First, we used the Web API to collect issues on GitHub that were labeled as good first issue. Next, we selected projects that had more than 500 GFIs to be analyzed. This is to select projects that involved a large number of inexperienced developers. As a result, 11 projects were selected. Finally, we collected the regular issues and pull requests from these projects using the Web API again. First, we analyze RQ1 whether GFIs are suitable for inexperienced developers with OSS development. The approach is to compare the difference in the number of pull requests posted before resolving the issue between two developer groups. One is a group of developers who resolve a GFI, and the other is developers who resolve a regular issue. If GFIs are suitable for inexperienced developers, then the number of pull requests posted by developers who resolve GFIs should be lower than those who resolve regular issue. The analysis result looks like this. The vertical axis of the box plot shows the number of pull requests posted by developers before resolving the issues. On the left are the developers who resolved a GFI. The median number of pull request posts was 26. On the right are the developers who resolved a Rail issue. The median number of pull requests posts was 118. The Mann-Whitney U-test showed a significant difference with a p-value of 0.000 and a large effect size of 0.655. Therefore, the test results showed that the number of pull requests posted by developers who resolved a GFI was significantly lower. For these reasons, GFIs are suitable for inexperienced developers with OSS development. Next, we analyze RQ2, whether GFIs are easy to resolve than Rail issues. The approach is to compare the percentage of Rail issues resolved and GFI resolved for each of the 11 projects analyzed. We did a project-by-project comparison assuming the difference of external contribution accepted. The results are as follows. For all the target projects, a percentage of GFIs resolved was higher than that of Rail issues. Therefore, GFIs were easier to resolve than Rail issues. Next, we analyze RQ3, the percentage of developers that have successfully used GFI for onboarding. The approach is to find out if an inexperienced developer can address the Rail issues after resolving GFIs. Specifically, the percentage of developers who posted at least one pull request to resolve a Rail issue after resolving the GFI is calculated for each project as a developer who successfully onboarded. The reason we consider onboarding successful with one Rail issue effort is that even a single contribution, called a one-time contribution, can be useful to the project. Here's the result. To compare the ease of GFI resolution and the percentage of successful onboarding, the second column of the table shows that results for RQ2. Comparing these results, we can see that even if GFIs are easy to resolve, the percentage of successful developers is not necessarily high. Therefore, just preparing GFIs does not mean that it is easier for inexperienced developers to succeed in onboarding. Hence, additional analysis may be conducted to find clues to reveal the reasons for the success or unsuccess of onboarding through resolving GFIs. The approach is to understand the content of the GFI in the top two and bottom two projects with the percentage of developers that have successfully onboarded. To understand the content of GFI, we collect all the labels that were labeled together with the GFI label and calculate the percentage of each label for each project. Here are top 5 labels that co-occurred with the GFI labels for the top 2 projects with the percentage of developers who successfully onboarded. These two projects were labeled as bugs made by many GFIs. Therefore, GFIs related to bugs may suggest that inexperienced developers are encouraged to resolve Rail issues later. On the other hand, in the bottom two projects, there were many labels related to documentation that were not seen before. This indicates that GFI related to documentation may not be working to motivate inexperienced developers to resolve Rail issues. Finally, conclusions and plans for future research. Analysis of RQ1 and 2 showed that GFIs are suitable for inexperienced developers with OSS development to work on, and are easier to resolve than Rail issues. Hence, GFIs can be used as training data to construct a model that recommends suitable issues for inexperienced developers. RQ3 and additional analysis also show that while the GFI mechanism does not always work to support onboarding of inexperienced developers, it can be effective for onboarding depending on the content of GFIs. So, it is necessary to screen the training data depending on the content of the GFI. We will systematically analyze the contents of GFIs which are effective to support onboarding, and construct an issue recommendation model based on the analysis results. Thank you for listening.